Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Clock Talk with Dr. Greg Brannon. I am Jim Baker, and today we're going to talk about testosterone and insulin-resistant levels. As always, it's a 15-minute segment, and doctor, you're good to go. So, first question, tell us a little about insulin, how it works in the body, and obviously we're going to lead to diabetes. Let's talk about diabetes as well.
Beautiful. What got me on this was the paper I was reading. Actually, I have all here in front of me, these 4 papers. Here are the titles of these papers. Testosterone replacement therapy improves insulin resistance, glycemic control, visceral adiposity, fat, hypercholesterolemia in men with low testosterone and type 2 diabetes. Another paper, testosterone levels and the risk of diabetes in men, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Here's a great one. A study finds testosterone therapy can lead to remission of type 2 diabetes. And one of the best ones here is association between serum testosterone, insulin resistance, a longitudinal study. It looks like we have a chart up here on that. That reviews that whole study. So why I brought this up, Jim? We had talked about this years ago, you and I. We think testosterone, we think a couple things. The community does. Muscle, sex. That's it. You see the commercials on ESPN, the wink, whole bit, da-da-da. That is a minuscule effect of what this is all about. We're looking at wellness and health and proper biochemistry. Let's not forget the only thing in these hormones, we're the only hormones, a group that they say is normal for your age. And I'm going to spend time today. I know I use it a lot as an analogy, but we're going to talk about diabetes today. We would never, ever, ever, ever say, we know that diabetes is a fasting blood sugar roughly over 100, 110. We know that. That's data. And we'll go over all the sequelae of diabetes in a minute. If there's a brand new study with 1 million people in it and the average blood sugar is 300, we wouldn't say, well, let's change the definition of diabetes now because we can't have everybody being diabetic. Of course you wouldn't, because you know about heart attack and blindness and Alzheimer's and dementia. You would never change it. But with testosterone, they've moved the goalpost the last 60 years. Travis did a great paper, shows the last 5 decades. Every single year, their starting point is lower and the pace in which it drops. Dropping testosterone because of your age is incorrect phrase. The age is not the variable. It's a time exposed to the chemical endocrine disruptors. That's what it is. So why I want to bring this topic up today is because we all can equate diabetes as sickness. Diabetes is a high blood sugar. But what does that mean? And that's what today's talk's all about.
Great. So let's walk through the first slide.
Okay. First slide is a review of the meta-analysis. This is the study, Jim. And this shows over who they looked at, all the charts they looked at. They looked at 1,400 participants 20 years ago, looked at all the data and how it all goes through. And this is the final minute in the study. So this is just the line of the study. But over here is what metabolic disorders, type 2 diabetes are associated with low testosterone levels. And we'll go over that right now, metabolic syndrome. So the whole relationship is what's relationship. So let's go back to a couple things. There is these 3-step chemical, making it simple, that gets to this molecule called malonic acid. In fact, our branding is a gonane, and that's what the backbone of malonic acid is. And why I bring that up is acetyl-CoA, HMO-CoA becomes malonic acid. Statins work there. So malonic acid, I'm going to make 3 structures it becomes. Just as a summarize, it becomes a thing called isopentanol, which is our basis of our immune system. It becomes squalene, which becomes cholesterol, and cholesterol becomes estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, vitamin D. It becomes our brain, our heart, all these 50% of every cell membrane. And the big one's called, another thing is called glycolic acid. So interesting. The papers on statins are, it does lower cholesterol, but it also increases diabetes 32% overall. Why? That molecule, glycolic acid, becomes the actual receptor of insulin. It's part of the buildup of the receptor site. What testosterone does, it makes insulin itself, the receptor site, much more sensitive to the insulin. Therefore, insulin can do its job. What is insulin's job? Insulin's job is to take glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cell. Glucagon is one that makes your body make insulin, make glucose to put glucose in your cell, because every cell needs an energy source, and glucose is a good energy source. It's not the best. Fat's the best. So that's why I bring up the science behind all that. So let's think, what is the complication of of diabetes or insulin resistance. The biggest one, most people have heard about, is called, next slide, please, is metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is 5 criteria that show an increased chance for diabetes. And again, so what are signs of having this? Number 1 is a waist, 40 inches for a man, 35 for a woman, regardless of height, because it's visceral fat. That's fat around the liver, fat around the pancreas, fat around the bowels, the omentum, that's pushing outward, because that causes stress in the pancreas, the liver. So biochemically, it's messed up, plus more stress in that area. And what that does is that causes, besides just being fat and visceral fat, increases inflammation through the roof, which is free radicals, which causes, we'll go over that in a minute. Next thing is hypertriglyceridemia, high triglycerides. Triglycerides is a type of fat. What causes that? Eating triglycerides? No. Eating sugar. Sugar increases the increase of triglycerides. Low in sugar drops that. That's why keto diet drops that. Next thing, it decreases, I don't like the phrase good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, but HDL being high has been shown to be protective, because that's the one that scavengers for other. When a cholesterol molecule has an extra electron in it, it's called oxidized. That's the one that causes complications, not cholesterol in general, okay? In fact, our liver makes between 2,000 and 4,000 milligrams of cholesterol every day. Without cholesterol, we're not alive. Next thing is high blood pressure. Why? Because the endothelial lining of the capillaries become inflamed. Inflamed causes pressure. Testosterone causes estrogen. Estrogen actually causes vasodilatation and relaxing of blood pressure. And the last one is high fasting glucose. So that is the precursor to diabetic. It was very interesting. If you look back before 1977, before the food pyramid, Americans ate 3 meals a day. They ate a high protein, high saturated fat diet, and we didn't have nearly the diabetes. There's a book called The 100-Year Lie by the FDA. Diabetes was 0.1% of Americans. Now roughly 80% of Americans are overweight. A third are obese. We changed from eating a high fat, high animal diet, high eggs, high cheese, high dairy, to this whole idea of low fat, high carbohydrate. We increase Alzheimer's, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, inflammation. All these have happened because we changed our diet.
And ultimately, all that type of diet just simply converts, it just bombarding your body with sugar.
Right. And the problem with the sugar is this. Get insulin, takes glucose. Its job is to push glucose into a cell. One glucose molecule will then line up. That's called glycogen. Glycogen lines up in the cell. It gets stayed mainly in your muscle and in your liver. So it's a store, it's a reserve. It's fantastic to have. But when you get about 3-4 days of glycogen put away, your body can't make any more. Jason Fung talks about it actually will kill the cell. It will actually kill the cell. So what it is, your body will convert the extra glycogen, now glycogen, glucose, those molecules, into fat. That's the kind of fat, and it gets stored viscerally. That's the problem, because your body's storing we talked about before, brown fat and white fat. We talk about the brown fat is the energy fat. The white fat's a stored fat that is not used for energy first until it converts. So that's what happens with it. Your body's just storing it, and your body's very, very smart. If you have sugar floating around, even though one glucose molecule gives you 2 ATPs, our energy source, it will use it. It's floating around. It takes a little more work to get to the fat molecule, but a fat molecule will give you 100 ATPs. So therefore, intermittent fasting, the metformins, the keto diet, the restrictive diet, all those do one thing, Jim, is they turn on what's called AMPK, which is the master switch to stop making things and then start burning the stored fat, burning that first, because your body knows that more efficient. There's a great book I read called Primal Blueprint years ago by Mark Sixton. He talks in his book, talks about that roughly about 3 weeks. So you need about a week to get rid of all your glycogen. Yes, you get the headache, you feel fluey, you hate it. But your body's going to be fat adaptable. And then once that's done, your body goes, whoa, 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 I got more energy. And then you start burning fat. So what you want your body to be is to be malleable. Burn sugar when it's around when you need it. Burn fat is a primary source. In fact, your body actually makes a byproduct called ketones. This is a fat byproduct. It's actually used for energy as well. The brain loves it. So it's important to understand why I'm bringing all this up, energy source stuff, because having a malfunctional hormone system makes these diseases occur. Now, how do you turn on AMPK? How do you turn these things on? Well, that's what these papers talk about. Testosterone actually affects all of these to a betterment. Burns fat, it burns fat as an energy source. It will build. It's called catabolic. It builds stuff. It will, but it needs energy for that. So you burn fat to build that. Again, making the insulin receptor more sensitive to the insulin itself. So this is interesting. Getting your hormones metabolically healthy reversed diabetes. That's insane. Probably the number one killer in America is obesity, right? When you add all of the disease processes.
Let's talk a little bit about the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Obviously, we're focusing a lot on type 2 right now. And then also, when I think it's more on type 1, but I could be wrong, where, you see a kid who has type 1, he has to have a candy bar with him in case he crashes. So it looks to me that the body somehow there's not getting enough sugar, into the system. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Jason Fung wrote a book called Diabetes Code. He's a nephrologist. Number one cause of kidney failure in North America is diabetes. And in his book, he talks about teaching people how to eat is very, very difficult. But if you teach them when to eat is very, very important. Because the goal goes to decrease these when you eat. Because every time you eat, you make insulin 30 minutes later for 90 minutes. And the culprit is insulin. So if you eat insulin in a short time, you get your calories, you get your nutrition, but you don't make it more. And interesting, if you eat in a meal, say a meat, a vegetable, and a rice, we'll call that. If you eat rice first, your blood sugars double if you eat broccoli first. Okay, so back to your idea of what this is. Type 1 diabetes means your pancreas, called the beta Langerhans cells, makes no insulin. So you need insulin. That's what it is. So the shots, the pump, the kid has more chance of being over-treated and causing hypoglycemia. That's why the candy bar is available. I've seen people basically in a hypoglycemic coma, and you literally pump in an IV of high dextrose sugar, and literally within seconds, wake up. That's how important it is. Type 2 diabetes is you have plenty of insulin, but the cells are resistant. Okay, and and this is very interesting. Jason made it very clear. Let's think about this. We treat type 2 just like type 1. Type 1 makes no insulin, we give insulin. Type 2 makes too much insulin, we give more insulin. Then it stops working. No, we have to redo the metabolic. We have to change the metabolic. We have to lower the blood sugars level so the cell actually would need it. So that's what's very important, is to understand the processes are totally separately different. So that's what we have to talk about.
And now we have type 3 diabetes.
That's called Alzheimer's disease. Think about that. Not everybody, most people heard about hemoglobin A1C. And real quick, there's a study given men with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, testosterone, and their hemoglobin A1C over a 3-month period, get this, dropped 17.4%. You see some of these commercials for medication for diabetes, they brag about a 2-3 point drop. 17.4%. That's a side note. So when you have extra glucose molecules, it's very sticky. It will stick to things. One is being a red blood cell. So that's how you measure hemoglobin A1C. Anything over 5.4 is too high. It also sticks to neurons. It sticks everywhere. When it sticks to neurons, it actually changes the structure of the neuron. Those are the tangles. That's part of it, is hypoglycemia, causing structure, inflammation in the brain, causing your cytokines, your immune system to attack the neurons. So that sticks. We'll call glucose sticking is 1. The fructose molecule, which is 5 carbons, not 6, glucose has 6. That one, Jim, is 700% more sticky than glucose. That's the cause of non-alcoholic liver failure, increased dementia, because fructose, and now you have high fructose corn syrup, is poison. 90% of our food was not here 90 years ago, and 90% of our diseases aren't here. So we got to get back to eating basically the right things, and then our hormones balances, and we got to fix the hormone balance in the environment. Then your body could actually do its function called homeostasis and keep our blood sugars proper. Insulin's crucial. Without it, we're not alive, but not too much. That's the key and I believe the food pyramid, going from roughly 100 grams of carbohydrates a day to 400 to 600 carbohydrates a day is the crucial part that did all this. But what I love about this paper is, again, we're giving testosterone. It doesn't just help muscles and libido. It's helping at the cellular level decrease because again, the side effects of diabetes, dementia, high blood sugar, the bad lipids. It's improving all that. The big thing it does, it decreases inflammation, which is the root cause of every syndrome.
Is traditional medicine treating with diabetics with testosterone now?
No. And that's the thing, Jim. I kept a second. We'll be over the time today. Mainstream medicine looks at things in isolation. The future of medicine has got to be nothing's in isolation and look at the whole system itself. That's the key.
As always, right on time. Thank you, Dr. Brannon.
Thank you.